Welcome back to Morning Footy, everyone. With the return of the Bundesliga this weekend, we're going to be talking all things German football. But last year, Harry Kane was the player of the season and Michael Olise was the rookie of the season, both the players being from the winning champion side, Bayern Munich. Looking forward to the season that's beginning this weekend. Odds to win the Bundesliga, obviously no one other than Bayern Munich are favourites for that. Leverkusen coming in second, Dortmund third, Leipzig fourth, and Frankfurt fifth.
Where's Heidenheim?
It's very difficult not to pick Bayern because of the dominance that they've had under Kompany last season, and also a feeling that the other big teams are kind of in transition or not really fully formed, don't really know what they're doing, where they're going. So even kind of by default, I think Bayern will be once again a little bit too strong domestically. The big question for them is what happens in the Champions League, because that's going to be the key test for Kompany and his man.
Rafa, who do you think will be the biggest challenger to Bayern Munich? We kind of got that out of the way. We think they'll be the champion. Everyone agreed with what you were saying there. But now who do you think will challenge them for that top spot?
Leipzig might be coming back strongly. They have a new manager and Ole Werner. They have a completely rejigged team. Lots of big players coming in, lots of exciting young talent coming in. And Jurgen Klopp pulling more and more of the strings in the background. There's talk that they will switch to a Liverpool-style 4-3-3, which is something that we've never seen really from Leipzig. And they're under a lot of pressure to perform as a club, as a corporation after that very disappointing year. But I think the fact that they're not involved in Europe will give them a bit of an edge. They can spend the whole week concentrating, focusing on that big game in the Bundesliga. And I think we'll see them make up some big ground and push Bayern possibly quite hard.
Yeah, I agree that no Europe is a massive silver lining for RB Leipzig to finally challenge Bayern. And I'm talking about challenge to the very end. Leipzig's always kind of been in the mix, but it's like never their time, right? It's so close, but not enough. For me, it's Dortmund. Dortmund have an obligation to respond with a better year, an obligation to not be second again. Is it realistic? Perhaps not. But it feels like last year was a debacle, despite them still making the Champions League, which is crazy to think. Yeah. It took them so long to finally get the train back on track, and it's on track. And they managed to retain Serhou Guirassy, which has been an incredible player for them since they've arrived. Shore up that midfield and the backline as well. So perhaps I see Dortmund giving Bayern a run for their money.
I went back and forth on this between RB Leipzig and Dortmund. We spoke to Rafa Honigstein on our on scoreline, and he was also very high on them. And I said, okay, this is good. I just don't feel like they've replaced Šeško well enough, and obviously not having Europe will help them, but I think it's Dortmund. I do think that Dortmund has the continuity after last year, and like you said, they have to respond. They didn't make a ton of transfers out, made a couple of key transfers in, and they have Guirassy, who I think will have a fantastic season this year. We'll get into him a little bit more now in a minute, but I do think it's Dortmund who will be the best challengers for Bayern Munich this season.
My pick is Eintracht Frankfurt. I really believe in Dino Toppmöller. The way that they replaced Oscar Marmoush and still kept going with Ugo Ekitike, I think they can do the same thing. They just signed Jonathan Burkhardt, Ritsu Doan. That's a lot of goals. That's about 40 goals between the two of them added to this team. I think that over the last 3 years, they've shown improvement each year, and this is the year that I really believe they can challenge at least. I don't think they're going to beat Bayern, but I could see them finishing second.
I like the variation of teams that everyone kind of picked differently. Stefano, let's come to you for Player of the Year. Who will be your Player of the Year in the Bundesliga this year?
Going out on a little bit of a limb here. Our young Player of the Year last year, Michael Olise, I'm going for him to be Player of the Year this year in the Bundesliga. And the reason I say this is because it's a World Cup year. He has a ton of competition in the France squad. He has the talent to be one of the best players in the Bundesliga. And we already know that. Yes, they have Harry Kane, who is going to score a ton of goals. But I think because of all the talent that they have around him, Harry Kane maybe doesn't need to go out there and score 50 goals for them to win the Bundesliga. He needs to score a ton of goals in the Champions League for them to win. But I think Olise, that opens up a place for him to have a massive impact, both creating goals and scoring goals. He's got the talent. He wants the France starting job. So I think he's going to have a fantastic season.
Can we do the Predator handshake? Because my pick is also Michael Olise. I think that he's going to have a fantastic year. Rookie of the year last year for Bayern. But he is a singularly incredible talent. The way that he just glides by defenders, he can take players on at will. He combines so well with his teammates. He's unselfish and scores goals, which is a great quality for a player in that type of position. He's going to be the guy for Bayern. Obviously, Harry Kane's going to get his goals, but with Jamal Musiala out for a significant period through injury, it's going to fall on Olise's shoulders, and he has the broad enough shoulders to take that.
Okay, I'm going to flip to the other side of the field, and this is very on brand for me, choosing the Latino. But Luis Díaz kind of has something to prove because he had a dip in form in Liverpool. I want to go back to the Luis Díaz that arrived at Liverpool and absolutely slayed for the first, 6-7 months, right? That Luis Díaz that absolutely balled week in, week out at Porto and Liverpool went, that guy's going to be really good for us. Coming off of that dip, I think at Bayern he has big shoes to fill for Kingsley Coman, who not only was good offensively, he worked off the ball a lot. So Luis Díaz is going to have to elevate his game, and hopefully he can fulfill that void that Kingsley Coman leaves on the left-hand side. And if he strikes that partnership with Harry Kane, Luis Díaz is going to be dancing.
No more dancing for you, brother. Come on.
Yeah,
There's cards here.
I'm sitting here waiting.
Rafa, who you got Player of the Year?
I think Luis Díaz and Michael Olise are both really excellent choices, especially because the competition up front for Bayern looks a little bit less than usual. So they will be automatic starters and be having a lot of responsibility to carry this Bayern side. But I still think that in terms of individual class, there's one world-class player at this Bayern team at the moment, and that is Harry Kane. And I think we'll come see him to the forefront. He had a slightly less than exciting season and got in terms of numbers last year, well below the 36 goals he scored in the year before. But I think we'll see him back to his best. And I think with the support that he's getting, also from deeper areas, and Alphonso Davies hopefully coming back soon on the left-hand side, that the crosses will be flying in, and I think he's going to have a fantastic season, Harry Kane.
Okay, moving on, Golden Boot winner. Now, 3 of you guys picked Harry Kane. Stefano, you were the only one who didn't choose Harry Kane. Why not?
I just wanted to be different. No, look, Guirassy, I picked him to be the Golden Boot for Borussia Dortmund. Kind of piggybacks off what I'm saying about Dortmund being the biggest challenger to Bayern this season. He needs to be an absolute force in front of goal. He was that already last season. He led the Champions Leagues in goals for the majority of the league phase, or all of the league phase last season, and even into the knockout phase for quite some time. He's going to have to be that for Dortmund to have some kind of success in the Bundesliga and to make sure that they're in Europe and hopefully maybe give at least a challenge to Bayern Munich for the title. He needs to be the top goal scorer in the league for them to have that type of success. He has all of the ability, and I think he's got that hunger, right, where he just needs to, we already know how good he is, but he needs to show that he is world class. To do that, he's going to have to win Golden Boot.
I do like that pick. Obviously, I picked different, but I like that pick.
He's a baller. He was fantastic last season.
Who do you think will be the manager of the year this year?
That was actually a really, really tough one because I think we have some really exciting managers in the league. Even last year, Julian Schuster won it for Freiburg and he had a lot of competition. I think Sebastian Hoeneß had a good shout for that as well. But I'm going to go for Dino Toppmöller at Frankfurt.
Yes!
Already on the back of the amazing work he has done, but I think this year in the Champions League, he'll show just how good he is. And I think he's got a chance to be as influential as Oliver Glasner has been for Frankfurt. And you see how good he is as a manager. Of course, they can't win the Europa League not being in it. But I see great things for him. And I think this is the year where people wake up to his talent.
I really do enjoy being different here, apparently. No, I just think that Bayern's just too good, and I think they're going to dominate this league this season. So, Kompany, for me, the manager of the year. Just because, again, I think that's going to be such a large gap between first and second that I think they're going to almost be forced to give it to Kompany.
It's a totally fair shot. I think it's very difficult to do this exercise when there is a team that is so overwhelmingly dominant to try to find the anomaly in a list of awards. Right? Dino Toppmöller has a very difficult job on his hands because not only did he lose Omar Marmoush, not only did he lose Ekitike, he lost Tuta as well. Over the last year, those have been pillars in the success of Frankfurt. And if this guy can gun for like a top 4 even to be back in Champions League, because usually for a lot of German teams that aren't Bayern or maybe aren't Dortmund, playing in Champions League while trying to compete domestically is always a detriment to their Bundesliga form, or often a detriment, I should say often a detriment to their Bundesliga form. So if he can stay alive in Bundesliga as much as he can, gun for that top 4 with guys that I think are a category or several categories below Ekitike and Marmoush in Burkhardt and Ritsudoan, I would say Dino Toppmöller could be the manager of the year.
Okay, moving from manager to young player. Aaron, who's your young player of the year?
I waffled between 2 RB Leipzig players, Johan Bakayoko and Jan Diomande. I went with friend of the show, Jan Diomande. I love his attitude to the game. In watching a lot of his clips, I love his work rate, the pace he has, the ability to dribble with the ball, his confidence. It's a big ask for him to come into this RB Leipzig side, not only get playing time but be successful. But I really, really, really love his attitude, and that's why he's going to be my sentimental pick for the young player, Jan Diomande.
Lovely. Stefano?
I'm going a little bit off the cuff here. I'm going with Jobe Bellingham for Borussia Dortmund. I think he's going to be a massive add. Clearly, I'm all in on Borussia Dortmund to finish second and to have
you're consistent.
Keeping it consistent. Keeping it consistent. I think he'll be a big key to bettering Borussia Dortmund's season from last year, where, again, they barely made it into Champions League. It was almost a miracle that they did make it. I think he will play a bigger role than I think maybe some people are thinking he will, and I do think he has a lot of talent that maybe hasn't been able to be unlocked as much when he was in the championship. I do believe that he'll be a big part to balance that squad quite a bit and be able to set them up for success moving forward on the pitch.
For me, if and when it becomes official, Claudio El Diablo Echeverri for Bayer Leverkusen.
Just became official. Just became official now.
It just became official, Rafa?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Breaking news.
Wow. Okay.
Breaking news.
A couple of minutes ago.
El Diablo Echeverri.
That's a great show.
By the way, this gives Malik Tillman a lot of competition. It adds depth to the Bayer Leverkusen squad for sure, but this kid hasn't played much. For Manchester City, he rarely played, and for Bayer Leverkusen, he's getting an opportunity to show what he showed at River. Again, he was the Franco Mastantuono before Franco Mastantuono.
Are you praising the River player? Is that what's happening?
He's amazing. I can actually be objective about the team that I do not support across the aisle. He's very good. Or at least in Argentina, he was sensational. You know, that attacking player that's got that South American flair, the edge, the drive, the creativity. So hopefully he'll have the opportunity for that to blossom in the Bundesliga. I'm very high on this kid.
I heard that shot, by the way. I praise all my opponents. I heard that shot.
You do.
Rafa, who you got for young player of the year?
Yeah, we already had 2 Leverkusen players picked, and there's, of course, a big Florian Wirtz-shaped hole in this Leverkusen forward line. But I think another player might actually come to the fore there, Ibrahim Maza. He's an Algerian international, born in Berlin, who plays for Hertha, and he cost 12 million euros and is seen as one of the biggest talents in German football with that move across to Leverkusen. I think he could be an extra special player in Algeria. He's already a superstar. And if he can continue that development at a reshuffled and transitional Leverkusen, which is going to be difficult, but I think he could be one of the biggest breakout stars this season.
Awesome. Okay, these awards have been very positive so far, so we're going to go a bit more negative. Aaron, who do you think will be the first coach fired?
This is a direct shot at Stefano, Niko Kovač. Niko Kovač will be the first coach fired because Dortmund will not live up to expectations. They have been such a disappointment in years past. This year feels like there's too much on their shoulders, and if Serhou Guirassy is not firing, where's it going to come from? I don't see this Dortmund team really being great this year. And that's me being negative. So if I'm going to pick a manager, it's Niko Kovač.
Niko Kovač to Niko.
So I can't choose Niko Kovač because I went Dortmund as the challenger, right? So naturally, if I'm looking at for one of the big teams, then I wanted to go Ole Werner for RB Leipzig, but there's been so many wholesale changes from the managerial perspective recently at RB Leipzig that it's not going to happen again. I think they'll try to see out a certain process at least at the beginning of the year. So I was doing my research, and if I had to choose one manager, Horst Steffen for Werder Bremen. He has no Bundesliga experience, none whatsoever, and Werder Bremen are actually coming off of a pretty good season. Their best in like 6 years. So to live up to that standard, I'm not too sure Werder Bremen can. And perhaps the drop-off will be so significant that they're going to have to fire their unproven manager with no Bundesliga.
It's a good shout, too, because they play Frankfurt and Leverkusen first 2 matches.
Oh,
so
wow.
that could be 2 L's in a row.
2 L's in a row. Rafa, we're coming to you now. Who do you think will be the first coach fired this year?
Yeah, some good suggestions there, but I think Gerardo Seoane from Gladbach is under real pressure before the first ball has been kicked, because last season was a big disappointment. There's a lot of unhappiness among the supporters because the transfers haven't really come. It doesn't look as if Gladbach, who are a massive club historically and certainly in theory, are making any progress towards the European places. So I think he is the #1 biggest endangered manager going into this first half of the season. I think we'll see him in crisis mode quite soon.
Yeah, this was the manager that got fired at Bayer Leverkusen, and then in came Xabi Alonso from a relegation battle to turned it into an undefeated champion.
Yeah, incredible. Stefano.
I'm going to go with Christian Ilzer of Hoffenheim. I think there's a ton of issues around that club right now. A lot of fan discontent. Couldn't get transfers across the line. There's issues with the management as well as far as their club's model, their private financial situation. There's a lot of problems behind the scenes, and I think ultimately managers usually pay the price for that. So Christian Ilzer for me.
Okay, moving on to our next award. Stefano, player you'll love by December.
Again, going deep in on Dortmund, and it's Jobe Bellingham. I love this player. I think he's going to be a fantastic player. I think
like that
he'll
pick.
be someone that that I think will like him.
Shocks me.
You're the one picking South American players as well. Let me have my time.
No, again, I think he's going to be a great player, and I think we'll learn to love his football.
Okay, Aaron?
I'm going to go with another RB Leipzig player, Antonio Nusa. I really think this is the year he could make a big jump in quality. He's got pace, trickery. The numbers haven't been there, but he's the type of player you sit up when you watch him because he's so exciting. My original pick was going to be Angelo Stiller from Stuttgart. I really, really love him. I think he has a bright future, but he's injured for a few months, so you don't really have enough time to fall in love with him. So my pick is falling back to Antonio Nusa.
Yeah, so just to be a little bit different from my other picks, I've picked a South American for player that you'll love.
Oh, yeah, you're coming at me for Jobe Bellingham.
Listen, you love a Brazilian in the Bundesliga, right? Because they do give you that something different, that sauce. And perhaps it's a Brazilian that you haven't heard of because there's Brazilians spread out in all the world. I think if you went to like the Tajikistan League, you could find a Brazilian. I'm going with Romulo, that RB Leipzig just signed from Göztepe in Turkey. Göztepe finished 8th last season. It's their best finish since 2018, and this guy was scoring goals for fun for a team that you probably have never even heard of. And RB Leipzig went, this guy, maybe he won't score as many goals as, to be the top goal scorer, or at least compete for the top goal scorer in the Bundesliga. But I got the feeling that he's going to give you something flashy in a couple of moments throughout the entire season with how deep RB Leipzig is for you to say, like, ooh,
That's my guy.
I like this guy.
That's my guy. I love that.
Rafa?
I'm with Aaron and one of his answers earlier. I think Jan Diomande from
Yeah, I like that one.
is going to be an absolute revelation, a player that a lot of people looked at. Of course, needs to prove himself at this level, needs to prove himself in a very dynamic stroke, sort of newly built Leipzig side that I think will take some time before things fall into place, and that might make it more difficult for a young kid like him. But come December, I think he would have had enough time to bet in, and I think he's going to have a big impact in this league.
Okay. Stefano, we're going to come to you with the final one, which is kind of funny because Nico was just talking about him. But who is going to be your biggest transfer flop?
Romelu Cardoso.
It's incredible.
I think he's a good player. I don't think he has done enough to. I don't think he is enough to replace what Leipzig lost. I think he will come good eventually. I just don't think it'll be this season.
All right, should I also come at Niko? Because mine is Luis Díaz.
All the shots at Niko.
Based on the drop-off we saw with Liverpool last season, and I really have worries about him fitting in with this Bayern team because he can at times. He's a fantastic player, there's no doubt. He can be selfish. And I think playing with a player like Harry Kane who needs that service, I really think very quickly he might get frustrated if Luis Díaz isn't in sync with him. So Luis Díaz is my pick.
Rafa, have you got a player who Nico's mentioned who will flop?
No. He mentioned the player, I think, but he's not South American. He's Japanese, Ritsu Duan. And I like the player. I found it hard to pick him as a flop. I just think, respective to some of the players that we've seen at Frankfurt before, in relation to the transfer fee, which by Frankfurt standards is quite big, 25 million euros, and the level he needs to go at, especially in the Champions League from Bochum, I'm not sure he's going to be the answer. So only in relative terms. I don't think he's a bad player at all. I just don't think he's going to be that much of a success. But I like him, and I wish that he proves me wrong and shows me this maybe later on in social media and says, yeah, you see.
Yeah, I was also kind of leaning Ritsu Doan, but he does have Bundesliga experience, and I kind of backed off a little bit. From all the transfers that I knew, right, there's a lot of Bundesliga transfers that I didn't know, so it was difficult to pick when I don't like this at all production. Forcing to choose a flop, because I wasn't going to choose the Americans. Obviously not going to call an American a flop, because I genuinely think Malik Tillman, has a good chance to really continue to elevate his game. Cole Campbell for Dortmund. But I chose Bakayoko from PSV, going from Tillman to the other side of PSV. RB Leipzig signed him for like around 20 million euros, 22 million euros. And his production level wasn't that great anyway. Obviously, I think it's a comparative transfer fee for what Malik Tillman went, because Malik Tillman, I think, was much more influential at PSV, who went for like basically double what Bakayoko went for. But the depth in the winger position at Leipzig, I don't think will allow Bakayoko to have a good season. I mean, he scored 9 goals in the entire Eredivisie. It's not like he was a superstar. He had a lot of good players around him. Like, the superstar of that team was Tillman. So I don't think he's going to be up to the RB Leipzig standard, perhaps. Hopefully I'm proven wrong.